Hey guys, Toby Mathis here, and today we're going to talk about how to buy a rental property in an LLC in 10 minutes or less. All right, let's dive into the concepts that are the most important things. Right? Number one, you are not going to be buying this property in your name. You are going to buy this property in the name of an entity. And notice I didn't just say an LLC. Now, a lot of you have been watching us for a lot of years, and you understand the idea of having some LLCs perhaps in the sideline that are ready to go if you know the area in which you're investing. So, for example, if I was buying a lot in North Carolina, maybe I have 10 LLCs going if I'm buying consistently in that state, and I'm just literally pulling one off and off the shelf and using that name. Hey, A.T. Mathis, manager, such and such, or A.T. Mathis, president of such and such corp as manager of such and such LLC. Like, there's lots of different ways to do it. If you've been watching us, you know that whatever might be the perfect way for you, hopefully you found it. And you might be doing that where you have some things on the shelf so you can immediately go in and buy and close in the name of an entity. Now, others of you are more on the reactionary. I tend to be on the reactionary side, by the way, because I don't know which jurisdiction I'm going to be buying in next. And frankly, I don't want to set up an LLC if I'm not going to use it. So if I know I'm in an area, I absolutely pre-set them up. If I don't know, like if I'm looking at an apartment complex or something like that, I'm probably waiting until we're actually into escrow. Now, if you're buying rental properties and you're buying them quick, you may not be able to wait for that LLC to be formed. In other words, I could go to the Secretary of State in a jurisdiction and I could file. And even if they have an expedited filing, it could still be several weeks before I get back my LLC. We just lived this one in Texas. And sometimes they reject your filing for the stupidest reasons. And if you are waiting on that LLC to close, you might be in a miserable situation where you're like, oh gosh, I can't close. What am I going to do? And that's where our friend, the land trust, comes in. Now, if you're not familiar with land trust, it's simply a contract between you as a grantor, as a trustee, and as a beneficiary. And this is really, really important. Every jurisdiction allows land trusts. If somebody says they don't have those in my jurisdiction, flick them in the eyeball and walk away. Well, actually, don't flick them in the eyeball, but figuratively flick them in the eyeball and walk away, right? That person is not somebody who deals with real estate consistently. You want people around you that do this stuff. So they've seen, they know the nuances. They know what to look for. They've lived it. A land trust works in all jurisdictions. There's more than 10 jurisdictions that have statutes on them, and then everybody allows trusts under common law. And how do I know? Because you can have a living trust in all jurisdictions and there aren't statutes on them, right? They'll have statutes on sometimes trust law, and you have a total variety. A living trust is nothing more than a grantor trust set up for an estate plan. A land trust is nothing more than a grantor trust set up for owning real estate. Same animal. It's ignored for tax purposes. I could be a grantor trust. Hey, it's just me. In fact, if you wanted to, like in Florida, you actually have asset protection from land trust. You could just skip the LLC if you didn't want it. You could just go ahead and buy properties directly in a land trust, and it's going to isolate that property from a lawsuit standpoint and a liability standpoint from the others. A lot of people do that. But for our purposes, we're going to assume the end beneficiary is always going to be an LLC. 99% of the time, that's kind of what we're doing. Every now and again, like if you're in California, we might use a Wyoming statutory trust to avoid the $800 per property, $800 per LLC, $800 per property tax. We can avoid that, get us down to just one. But yeah, for the most part, I'm just speaking to people as a whole. I'm going to use a general analysis. I could own in a land trust and I can make the beneficiary an LLC. And I didn't just misstate that. I can literally go in there. Let's say it's just me in cash. And I used to do this all the time right here in Nevada. Because I'll tell you what, Clark County, where I'm standing right now, you can put a property in an LLC without a tax consequence. But if you pull that puppy out, you get hit with the tax. There's jurisdictions that tax you if you put a property in an LLC, like Pennsylvania. Thank you, Pennsylvania. Yeah, they hit you. So the land trust becomes our friend. What I would do when all heck was breaking loose in 2008, 9, and 10, and BlackRock comes in and all these big funds are coming in and buying all the houses here. You're going in and you're bidding on house after house. You're going down to the auction. You're doing all these things. You need to be able to take title, boom, quickly. You're buying these things with cash. And what I would do, because I didn't know if I was going to have my bid accepted. I didn't know if I was going to have my offer accepted. And I would put sometimes 20 offers a day. I would just use the property address and trust. If it was 123 Main Street in Las Vegas, Nevada, whatever it is, I would use 123 Main Street Trust. That's it. Did the trust exist? No, I didn't draft it yet. I would just use that name as a placeholder because I didn't want to put the offer in my name. You can put an ovation where I can assign it to somebody else, but sometimes you are closing literally the same day. If you're going down to an auction, you are closing, you're coming cash, you're giving them the name that day. And all you have to do with the land trust is create the land trust. If you're using us, for example, like you could actually have a land trust template. Change it, put your name in, and you're taking title in the name of the trust. And this is important. The way it looks, generally speaking, if it's me and I'm not too worried about anonymity for me, right? I have tons of properties rolling around out there. I'm a nominee on tons. Me, I might put A.T. Mathis, trustee of the 123 Main Street Trust, or back it out. Say the 123 Main Street Trust by its trustee, A.T. Mathis. And that's exactly how it's signed up. That's how title would be. Guess what is never on title? The beneficiary. There's one jurisdiction where they might require it, and that's Arizona, but it's your right as the beneficiary to force it. In other words, it's a non-issue. It's a red herring. People say it, and then they don't understand how it works. Easy workarounds. I can assign my beneficial interest to any LLC I want. So here's how it would look. Let's say that I'm here in Clark County. There's a house that goes up for sale, or it's a pocket listing. I immediately say, I'll buy that for cash. We will buy it tomorrow, the same price or whatever. We'll buy it today. All right, I need an offer. Okay, I just use the address. 123 Main Street Trust is the offer, or as I'm putting in the offer. So who's the buyer? Me. So it'll be A.T. Mathis, trustee of the 123 Main Street Trust. Now, if you're using an LLC as a trustee, then you'd say A.T. Mathis, manager of ABC LLC, as trustee of the 123 Main Street Trust. Yes, you can actually do that. Gets a little long, and that's why we actually like that. Believe it or not, a lot of jurisdictions, they don't even have great electronic records. They might have the first 18 or so, 20 or so digits, or letters, numbers and letters. And so you're looking at it going, all right, who's really the owner of this thing? It's the 123 Main Street Trust by its trustee. Nobody's really digging that deep, right? If they're searching for you, maybe they come across it, but they see it's in an entity. Most attorneys who are out there looking for frivolous suits don't want frivolous suits against somebody who has asset protection. We call it attorney be gone. They don't want to jump up on your couch because you sprinkled attorney be gone all over it. They just don't want to, just like doggy be gone on your couch. The dog doesn't jump up on the couch. Why not? Because every time they do, they're uncomfortable. They never get what they want. They get a sniff of something that they don't like. So an attorney who's a plaintiff's attorney needs to, in order to get paid, they need to actually collect money. So why would they want to go suing people that they can't collect from? Now, if you have a liability occurrence, different, on that particular property, there's no protection. Maybe you have a debt against it. That could be helpful. Friendly liens might be helpful. But if you actually have somebody who trips and falls in your property and you have a liability, it's insurance, it's your umbrella, and then there's the actual equity of the property that's there. They're not going outside that thing. We've been doing this for 25 years, and we've had tens of thousands of clients that all they do is invest in real estate. We can see what works and what doesn't. What does not work is buying properties in your name and then transferring afterward. Like if you are concerned about liability, ex-wife, I have somebody that's after me, I'm worried, whatever, I have strong liability in my profession, and you have a bunch of properties and you're transferring after, they could see that. It's not the end of the world. I'm not horrifically worried about that, but I'm saying it's so easy not to do that. I could just buy in the land trust and I can take the beneficial interest and I can assign it later. Let me just show you kind of how it looks, just so you see it. So I'm going to buy, and let's just say it's the 1, 2, 3 Main Street Trust. And then it's going to be by its trustee. And let's just say it's ABC LLC. Like, you could actually have that. That's no problem. Nowhere on there is it saying who's the beneficial, who has the right to rent the property, who has the right to sell the property, who gets the economic benefit of that property. That's literally in this trust document. And guess where that trust document is never filed? It is never filed in a county or state or anything like that. That stays in your file cabinet. So you're the only one who knows, along with probably your insurance company. Your accountant will know. The bank will know because, well, they might know. They might not even know. You just set up account in the trust. But you could literally, it's just three parties. It's the grantor, which is equal to you, the trustee, which is equal to you, or your anonymous LLC, if you want to keep your name off it, and then the beneficiary. It could equal you, and you could transfer that to your LLC, or it could just be the LLC. Easy peasy, right? You do this, you close, the property is now the same as being in the LLC. Now let's talk about timing. So you now know that you could literally put an offer in on an entity that does not necessarily exist. It doesn't exist yet. I could just put a document together, my land trust. I could close in the land trust. Once I close, once there's the title and that land trust, you have an effective plan. Boom, it's done. And I don't have to file it anywhere. I'm not waiting for a Secretary of State to approve me or anything like that. I literally just sign it. Probably get it notarized. Probably be the best. But I have a document, boom, at the closing table. I can actually have that document. What I used to do, hey, your offer is accepted. Great. When we're closing, and if it's an escrow company or if we're just doing a closing documents ourselves, it's just, all right, what's the name? What's the name on the deed? This is the name on the deed. Okay, verify the name on the deed. Fantastic. That's what's going to the county. If you're using an escrow company, they're going to want to see the trust documents. That's it. Trust documents have you on there to keep it simple. If you have financing, it's you. If you don't want them to know there's an LLC, the original beneficiary is you. It makes it super easy. Nobody's going to ask any questions. Once you are closed, assign that beneficial interest to the LLC. Now, what if your LLC isn't done yet? Okay. We can still put the assignment in, hey, I filed it. Your filing is actually effective to the date that you mail it. But it's just an internal document. All I'm showing is that, hey, when the liability occurred, if there's ever an issue, you can see the timing of it already. Like, hey, I filed my LLC. I put in ABC LLC, assign it, I'm done. What if ABC LLC is rejected? Okay, then I amend it. ABC LLC, such LLC, or I just reassign it. I just go back in and say, hey, let's just do another assignment, tear that older one out. They're revocable. So like I could just tear it up, put another assignment in place to, oh, it needs to be ABC Management LLC, or ABC Property, or ABC Capital, whatever I have to do to make it go through. Then I'm making that assignment over to that LLC and I am good as gold. That's all you have to do. Now, what about that LLC? What if it's held by a holding company? Cool. Then guess what that route looks like? This literally is in the LLC as far as liability is concerned. Do you care about legal title? No, because I don't really want everybody to even see my LLCs. Like if I'm in a state, and especially if you have multiple properties in LLC, I could have 3 or 4 different trusts. I could have the 123 Main Street Trust. I could have the 567 Green Street Trust. I could have the 8910 or 8910 Pink Street Trust. I could have all these different trusts. And guess what? The same beneficiary. It could be an LLC. Like if I don't want to have LLCs coming out my ears, I could have 3 properties, 4 properties, 5 properties, whatever it is, whatever my comfort level is, assigned to an LLC. And it's the same thing as if all those properties are in there. But something happens on one of the properties. They don't see the other properties because it's all not all in one name. In other words, I could have a different land trust for each property. That's what's on title. That's what the world sees. Who owns this property? Oh, it's the 567 Green Street Trust or whatever it is, right? What they don't see is that they're all pointed towards ABC LLC. So for liability purposes, they're all held in an LLC, which keeps it separate from me. It also keeps me separate from the LLC. Hopefully you're using a holding company in Wyoming where they can never take your interest away. But I've created separation. And then this is the most beautiful part. What about taxes? You could actually set this whole thing up if you want as tax neutral, disregarded, no tax returns, zero zilch. Federal taxes, it's all on my Schedule E. Each property is listed out. How can I do that? Because the tax laws allow us to do that. Tax rules allow us to do that. Now, I wouldn't say do that. Depending on your circumstance, generally speaking, you're going to want to have a partnership at the holding level. Now, in this day and age, you want to be able to see a K-1 just for lending purposes. They're counted differently. They actually use 100% of the revenue on a page 2 where your K-1 would flow versus on page 1 of your Schedule E, which would be if all the properties are held technically in your name. Even though they're in the land trust, from a tax perspective, they're considered in your personal name. They're going to look at that, and they use 75% of the income. So you don't, if you're doing lending, you're almost always going to want to have that partnership return. But no matter what, like the whole point here is that you can set a structure like this up to be completely ignored from a tax perspective, or you could use it just like if you wanted to do a partnership, you could still have it held that way. But when you're closing and you need to close in 10 minutes, all you have to do is do that land trust. Or you have the LLC already sitting around waiting for you and you're in a state where you don't have a negative consequence of pulling a property out of an LLC, like if you want to go refi it or something like that. Then, like in Clark County, again, where I'm standing right now, they would charge you a small tax to remove a property to do the refi. If I have it in a land trust and I moved it into my name to do a refi, guess what? No tax. Even if it's pointed to an LLC, even if there's an assignment, because what I would do is I would just take it out of the trust and say, yep, it's me. I'm the end beneficiary. And that's the truth. And I wouldn't have to pay a tax. Somebody else who's listening to some other lawyer putting property in the LLC directly, and they go, oh, I need to refi it. Oh, when we close, we need to take it out of the LLC to make sure it's in your name so we know it's you and that you don't magically sell that LLC to somebody else in the middle of closing. I need to know that you are the one that has the rights to 100% of that property. So if I finance it and I secure it, that I know I'm in first position. If they do that, you get hit with a little tax. You use a land trust, you don't. So the whole point of this video, it seems sometimes like it gets a little like, hey, there's little nuances. Yes, that's why you work with somebody who knows what they're doing. But also because it's so profoundly easy once you know where you're buying to create an easy strategy so you can close on anything in 10 minutes if you need to. If you need to make a quick offer, you don't have to think about it. Hey, call your lawyer. Hey, could you please file an LLC? Let me know when it's done and I'll put the offer in. You don't have to do with any of that stuff. You can just literally pick the name. It's not filed anywhere except, in the county, but you're not filing the entity. You're not waiting on approval for a name. You can literally just pluck it out of the air. Mickey Mouse Trust, you could do that. But we want to make sure that you have control and that there's no other versions. That's why I tend to use either numbers. Sometimes we use them sequential, although it's tough to figure out which property it is. A lot of times it's just me and other people. Even my partner does something slightly different. But for me, it's really easy to use the street address, just the number and the name of the street as trust. So again, Main Street Trust. There it is, 123 Main Street Trust. Easy. If it's 467, Port Blue Street, that's the 467 Port Blue Street Trust. Like really easy. Or if I just want to cut the number off and I'm not buying on the same street very often, you could just say Port Blue Trust, whatever. You just do something that's a mechanism where you know what that property is. If you're buying a lot, Like you're like me, like we're always buying, and it's dozens of properties a month sometimes. You're just sitting there looking at it going, hey, I need an easy way to know which property's pointed where. If you're just doing one a year, then maybe you're picking your name it after your dog or something, as long as you know which property is in there, and it makes it easy. Otherwise, you get up over 20 properties and there's not an easy convention. You got to keep a good list of which property is pointed where. I get a little wonky, so I tend to use the address, but that's a personal preference, and I do it with my eyes open. But the end result is still that it's the same effect as though I bought it in the LLC, and I don't have to wait for that LLC to get approved. And also, I don't have to worry about anonymity on the LLC, because technically nobody even sees that it's pointed there. It's just the land trust, and it's such an easy, effective tool. Hey, if you're a real estate investor, you like this type of information, please click the subscribe. Hit that notification bell if you want to know when new videos come out. And then this is the most important part. Two things. Number one, if you know anybody else who's investing and they're getting bad advice or no advice, or they just have questions, by all means, send this out to them. We're darn straightforward. And then number two is, if you have any comments, please put them down there. Like, if it's not me, I have a bunch of attorneys that work with me, and I'm making sure that we're getting answers out there. So if you have comments, questions, whatever, we're not going to charge you and things like that. We just go through it and we answer. And why? Because we're part of a community. We love in real estate investing. I happen to think that that's a great thing to be involved in. And as you learn along, sometimes there's some things that you don't know that could blindside you. To the extent that we can avoid that pain and help you avoid that pain, we're going to do it. So thanks for listening, and good luck out there.